Hey everyone, Scott here, and in today's video I'm going to be making some predictions as to what the reprints in the Anniversary Box 2021 might look like. So for those of you that haven't seen, Anniversary Box 2021 was recently added to the official Dragon Ball Super card game website. It's going to be out in August of this year. We don't have an exact date yet. And in this, there's going to be Vault Power-Up Packs 2021. There's going to be 4 in a box, and those are the packs that will include the reprints. 3 non-foils and a foil. And there's going to be 20 cards total that are going to be reprinted in the set. And that's the same number as from the 2020 Anniversary Box and the one from 2019. So yeah, in this video, I'm going to be predicting what those 20 cards are going to be. So first up, there's some rules I'm going to be following in this video when making my predictions. So if once we start to get into the predictions, there's a card that you think might be a better fit, it's probably because it doesn't fall within any of these rules. So the first rule is I'm going to be using last year's colour distribution in terms of the predictions I'm going to make. So I'm going to be predicting 3 red, 3 blue, 3 green, 3 yellow. And then 2 blacks and 1 of each of the multicolour pairings. The second rule is that I'm not going to include anything that's recently been reprinted. That would include anything that's been reprinted in the Battle Evolution booster that was recently released, anything from the recent Player's Choice packs, Collector's Selection Volume 1 as well, and there's been a few other cards reprinted recently as either winners versions or in event packs and things like that. I'm not going to be including any of them in my predictions. And the third rule is I'm not going to be including cards with any hard restrictions. This is just something that I noticed when I was going through the cards that were reprinted in the previous years. There didn't seem to be too many that had like specific leader requirements or were part of like a chain, like a swap chain or an evolve chain, something like that. The cards that had been reprinted in the 2 previous anniversary boxes tend to be very generic. They can fit with a lot of different decks, and I guess that makes sense with how few reprints there are. They want to kind of appeal to as many different players as possible, so they wouldn't want to include anything that's very specific to, say, like a baby deck or a Lord Slug deck or an Agents deck, anything like that, I don't think. So yeah, those are the main rules. But up next, I think there are 3 levels of reprints that can kind of exist within the game. So first up, you have expensive cards that kind of need reprints. And these are the kind of reprints that get people excited and saying things like, wow, I want that card, I'll grab a few boxes. These are kind of the chase cards of the set that people are going to want to get as many packs as possible to try and pull them. So that, I say, would be like the first level. The second level would be cards that are used but aren't really expensive. And these are the kind of cards that still excite people when they're announced as part of the reprints. And I guess people say things like, oh, it'll be nice to have an alternate art version of that card. That kind of thing. A previous example from last year's anniversary box of that would be something like Planet Vegeta or Preemptive Strike. These are cards that like certain decks will run. Not every deck, but the people who do use them would like maybe to see an alternate art version of that card. And then the third level would be cards that aren't really used in many decks or any decks really, and aren't expensive either. And these are the kind of reprints that kind of have people scratching their head and wondering why would they choose to reprint that card. There's always been some of those in the previous anniversary boxes. So like last year, there was a card like Familial Bonds that only ever really saw play in like the Pan deck, maybe. And even then, that wasn't like a meta deck or anything. That was kind of a rogue deck. So yeah, a lot of people, when that card was first announced, thought, well, why would they even bother to reprint that? With my predictions, with the 4 original colours of the game, red, blue, green and yellow, I'm going to be making one prediction from each of these kind of levels. Because, like I say, I think we will get some cards in this anniversary box that need to be reprinted. Some that'll just be nice to have, and some that'll be just total waste of space. That, again, is something that they've done in every previous anniversary box. So let's just jump straight into the predictions next. So first up, we have the kind of level 1 red reprint, the card that people might really want to get their hands on. And for this, I've chosen Violent Rays. And over there on the left, I have the lowest possible price you could pay for this card currently on TCG Player. And over on the right, I have the equivalent for an English version of the card from Card Market. Obviously, I want to include the price of the English card because it wouldn't be fair to include a price of like a French or an Italian, because those cards just tend to be a lot cheaper than the English equivalent. So this is definitely a card that I think people will be excited to get their hands on if it's in the anniversary box reprints. It's definitely a card that a lot of red decks need, and I know a lot of people are going without at the moment. Because of the high prices, you can see there, almost like $70 or €50. That is an insane price for like one copy of this card. I mean, literally a full playset is more expensive than most of the secret rares in the game at the moment. So this is definitely something that people want to get their hands on. Now, some people might say, well, Violent Rays was only just printed. It's too soon for them to reprint it. Well, to that, I have a response. So if we look at last year's anniversary box, it was released in August of 2020, and it contained a lot of reprints from Dragon Brawl, which was the Draft Box 4, and that was released in the previous year, the October, so it was only like 10 or so months earlier. And if we look at the release date for this year's anniversary box, it's August 2021, like I mentioned before. And if we look at set 11, that was released almost a year to the day after Draft Box 4, October 9th. So there's a similar kind of time gap between this anniversary box and set 11 as there was from the anniversary box last year and Draft Box 4. So I don't actually think it is too soon for them to reprint Violent Rays. So yeah, like I say, that is my prediction for like the must-have red reprint in this upcoming anniversary box. So the next kind of level down, I've gone for Freezer Death's Embrace. Again, I think this fits within that kind of category of, it's a card that not every red deck is going to be running, but the ones that have been running this card might like to get an alternate art version of it. You can see there it's not super expensive, especially when compared to like Violent Rays that we were looking at before. It's like literally 10 times cheaper. So yeah, that's my prediction for the kind of mid-level red reprint we could see. And then for the final level of red card that we could see, at this point, it's basically random. There's tons of cards that don't need to see a reprint, but probably will end up getting one of them. So I've gone for this Son Goku Nimbus Voyager from the Surge expansions. I think it fits within all the categories. Like it only really needs a red leader, and I mean, it kind of is useful maybe in the right deck, but no one really runs it. So again, this is something that I could very easily see it being reprinted in the upcoming anniversary box, and I don't think anyone will be too happy about it. So next up we have blue. For the kind of big blue reprint, I've gone for another set 11 card, which is Baby the Unknown Parasite. I know for a lot of blue decks, this is the go-to Unison, especially with that really good +2 that it has, that lets you just draw a card, and then the -5 can be kind of a game ender, kind of beefing up your leader and giving it double strike. And you can see there, it's nowhere near as expensive as Violent Rays, but Violent Rays is one of the most expensive cards in the game outside of secret rares at the moment. So yeah, I think people would be happy to get their hands on a copy of this card. And so that's why I've chosen it for the blue kind of level 1 reprint. So next up we have kind of the mid-level reprint, and for this I've gone for Mafuba. I know Mafuba isn't super expensive, but it is a card that still sees play. And I also think it'd be really cool to get like an alternate art version of it. I'm surprised there isn't one already. I mean, technically there is. It was reprinted in like a tournament pack, and they added like a green effect to it, but the artwork underneath was the same as the original printing of Mafuba all the way back in set 2. So I think they could do something really cool with the artwork on a reprint, maybe depict a different time that the Mafuba was used. Maybe Master Roshi using it during the Tournament of Power. I know he used it a few times during that. This is just a card that I think people might be excited to get a alternate art version of. And then for the kind of dud reprint in blue, I've just gone for Mr. Boo the Mischievous. I mean, it's a promo, it's never been reprinted before. Its effect is kind of okay, it's kind of meh. And maybe with the announcer leader getting rebooted, this is like a world tournament negate that it could maybe go in that deck. So maybe that's why they could reprint it. I don't know. It was kind of a toss-up. There was a lot of cards I could have put in this slot, obviously. But this is just the one I've chose. And I guess we'll see when the reprints are actually announced whether I was correct or not. So next up we have green. And the big one here is Dormant Potential Unleashed, which I think is desperately in need of a reprint, the same way that Violent Rays was. Very similar in terms of price, and with how essential this card has been to green decks recently, and how hard it is to get a hold of a copy. Again, if you want to buy a full playset, you're going to be talking like over $200, or close to €200 if you're in Europe. And I think with Master Roshi Kamehameha Origins being banned, this could be a sign that Dormant Potential is going to be made a bit more available to people. And maybe that's why that card was banned, because at the moment it's kind of a niche thing. If you have like a decent number of copies of Dormant Potential and Master Roshi, you can kind of do the thing where you just keep adding it back to your hand over and over. But maybe if Dormant Potential becomes more available, they're worried that there's going to be a lot more people doing that kind of recurring the card back on over and over again trick using the Master Roshi. Maybe that's why they banned it. I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking that, but I would personally like to see this card get reprinted so I could get my hands on a couple of copies. And so for the kind of mid-level reprint, I've gone for Frieza Army Healing Pod. Again, this is a card that does see use in some decks. I also think they could do something really cool with the artwork, especially if they decided to go for the horizontal effect that they've been given to some field cards recently. I think of all the predictions I'm making in this video, I think this is the one I'm most confident with, and I think it will be in that kind of horizontal aspect ratio. And again, this is another one that I would be happy to see an alternate art version of. And maybe even in the alternate art reprint that could change who's in the healing pod, because I'm pretty sure in the Frieza Saga Goku ends up in one of the healing pods at one point, so we could see that on the card. Or possibly is even in Resurrection F. Isn't there a point where Frieza is put into one of them? I could be misremembering on that. But yeah, I think they could do something interesting with an alternate art version of it. And it's a card that still has a little bit of value as well. And for the kind of bottom of the barrel green reprint, I've just gone for Father-Son Kamehameha. It just seems like the kind of card that I could see them reprinting, because it has an effect that seems good at first. Being able to KO something that has a higher energy cost than your opponent's energy, but it just doesn't see any play, so not too many people would be excited to see this card reprinted, although they could, again, do something pretty good with the artwork, with this being kind of a pretty iconic moment, the kind of culmination of the Cell arc. So an alternate art version could look pretty cool, especially with the kind of different art styles that they use in the anniversary box. Could be cool to see another rendering of this scene. So next up we have yellow, and for the big yellow reprint, I did originally put Bergamo Ferocious Roar in here, but I forgot that it was reprinted in the Revival Pack from set 12. So I just switched it out last minute for Giant Ball. This is another one that was originally from Draft Box 2 and is kind of up there in price. Maybe not as much as some of the other cards we've looked at previously, like Dormant Potential or Violent Rays, but it's still a card that people, I think, would be happy to get their hands on some copies of. Draft Box 5 or DB2 being another one of the sets that was kind of underprinted. And I think that's maybe contributing to why this card is so up there in price. I mean, it's basically just crushable, but you also draw a card off it. I don't know why that would have such a high price. Like we can see there, €15 or basically $19. Like I say, for a card that is just a slightly better version of crushable. For the mid-level kind of yellow reprint, I've gone for Vegeta, Unison of Fury. They've not shied away from reprinting cards from expansions in the previous anniversary boxes, so I could see them doing it again with this guy, because his price has kind of gone up quite recently as people have finally realised how good his -1 skill is, of being able to stop your opponent attacking with battle cards with energy cost greater than their current energy. That is such a good skill. Recently I was playing against someone at my locals and they were using the Sin Shenron deck, and with how easily they can get the 9-drop out, that -1 ability is kind of backbreaking against that deck. Just most of the stuff they play ends up being higher than their energy cost, especially for a lot of the early turns, so this card is really good for that. And this is one that I think people would like to have an alternate art version of as well. And so for the kind of least good reprint prediction, I've gone for March of the Great Ape. Really, I just picked this because they can maybe change who the Great Ape is on the card art with an alternate version. They could change it to be like Vegeta during the Saiyan saga or something like that, when he became a Great Ape. Next up we have black, and for this I'm going to do something a little different. So for the first of the 2 black reprints I picked, I've gone for Koitsukai Mechanical Courage, I think is how it's pronounced. And this is just like a really good sideboard card, I know. Currently, it's against the right deck, it can really shut them down for a turn. Very reminiscent of Dark Power Black Mass Saiyan, with a little bit of like a quick shift kind of effect as well, letting you put 2 cards back in your deck to draw 2. And again, I think it's also kind of reminiscent of Live to Fight Another Day from the Freeze Prison deck, which is a card I know pretty well. I mean, I played a lot of Freeze Prison back in the day. So yeah, this is one that you can see it's up there in price. And people would like to see it get reprinted in the upcoming anniversary box, I think. So far, I think all my predictions have been kind of relatively sensible and kind of safe, almost. For the next one, I am going kind of out there a bit, and I think the other black reprint could be Beyond Darkness Demigra. Now, obviously, this would be a big deal with it being a secret rare, but I think with the way the secret rare prices have been going, and the fact that Bandai have technically reprinted 2 secret rares in the past in the revision packs, I think they could be using this year's anniversary box as kind of a test run of what the kind of community reaction would be if they started to reprint secret rares on a more regular basis. Kind of see who gets really angry about it and who really likes the fact that they can now get their hands on these kind of rare cards. So when it came down to it, I thought if they were going to maybe try and do a test run of reprinting a secret rare in this set, they'd probably go for one of the black ones. And I was thinking it was probably 50-50 between this or the Negative Energy Dragon Balls. I ended up going for this one just because, with it being slightly older, I think maybe there'd be less of an uproar about it. But I suppose at any point, if they tried to start reprinting secret rares, I think a lot of people would get up in arms about it, either way, no matter which one they chose. So yeah, this is kind of an out there choice. This, of all the predictions I'm going to make today, I think is the one I'm least confident with. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see when they make the official announcements of which cards are getting reprinted in this set. And so for the multicolour reprints, I've gone for kind of a theme. And I have 2 different sets of cards that I think could be the multicolour reprints. So first up, we have half of the Destroyer and Angel rares from Draft Box 5. And the ones I've chosen are the ones that can be placed in your energy with their energy exhaust skill negated if you warp 2 cards from your drop area of the corresponding colour. But I decided to go for these guys in particular because this anniversary box is the first set that we know of that is going to be post the Unison Warrior kind of block. The block was originally supposed to be 3 sets, but then they quietly kind of extended it out to be 5 sets instead. And the 5th set of the Unison Warrior block is out in July, I believe. And then this is going to be out the next month in August. So I'm kind of guessing that the next block, we're going to see a bit more of a return to multicolour. Or maybe just kind of a balance between monocolour and multicolour. Because, and this is something that I only really realised when I was making this video, the Unison Warrior sets have contained no multicolour cards whatsoever, with the exception of the very first set in the block, set 10, Rise of the Unison Warrior. That did have a few multicolour cards in it. All the recent multicolour cards have been in either like Draft Box 3, the Battle Evolution booster, or just like promos. If there is a return to kind of multicolour in the next block, I could see them reprinting these cards kind of as a way to get them into people's hands in preparation for the upcoming multicolour stuff in the new sets. Again, that's kind of a out there prediction. That may not be what happens. Maybe they could extend the Unison Warrior series even further. They could add 2 more sets again like they did before. But I'm going to guess that they're not going to do that, and that these could be some of the cards we could see reprinted. You can see there, I've done kind of a range of the prices. Some of them are like as low as $9, as high as like 20, or like 10 and 21 in terms of euros. The other set of cards that I could see them reprinting in the multicolour slots are these ones, the rares from set 7 to 9, and I've picked these for basically the same reason I picked the Angel and Destroyer rares that I did. It's because they have the ability to negate energy exhaust, and I think that could be something that they could get in people's hands in preparation for the next block. Obviously these are a lot cheaper when you compare the prices. Some of them are as low as like 10 cents or like $1.50. So these would definitely be the cheaper option, and I think, well, these would be just as good for new players, for people who were around for set 7, 8 and 9 who open plenty of packs or even plenty of boxes. They're going to have tons of copies of these guys, and they're probably not going to want alt art versions of them, although maybe they would, you know, if they look sufficiently cool enough. People might be okay with having these guys reprinted rather than the Angel and Destroyer rares. But yeah, so for the multicolours, I think it's either going to be these guys or the previous guys, the Angel and Destroyer ones I just showed you. And that brings us to the end of my predictions. So what's going to be reprinted in Anniversary Box 2021? Like I say, this is not a wish list. I don't necessarily want these cards to be reprinted, but these are just kind of my educated guesses as to what band I might choose. Some of them are going to be good, some of them are going to be bad. One thing I did want to point out, so with some cards like Dormant Potential or Violent Rays, I also had in the back of my mind that maybe they would not be reprinted in this Anniversary box, and rather they would save them for, say, a Collector Selection Volume 2 that might come out in the future. I think if neither of those cards get announced as being reprinted in this set, this upcoming Anniversary box, I think that is probably the most likely case, that they're saving it for the Collector Selection instead. Like I say, that brings us to the end of my predictions, and that is it for this video. If you've got your predictions of your own, let me know what they are in the comment section down below. Don't forget to subscribe, and thanks for watching. Also, if you want to go ahead and follow me over on Twitter, I'm at Cardiff. I've been posting these GIFs I've been making from the Broly movie. I've also been posting links to all the videos. Going forward, I'm going to try to, whenever possible, tweet out short clips of upcoming videos. So if you want to get like a sneak peek of what's coming up on the channel, like I say, go ahead and follow me on @Cardiff on Twitter.